I'd like to welcome you to the Mississippi Municipal League 2015 Legislative Agenda Press Conference. We are here to talk about things that cities and towns need to take care of the people back at home. That's what we're all about every day, is taking care of those people. Many of them are at their jobs today, and they don't have a lobbyist they can send up here. So these mayors and aldermen behind me have to function as the lobbyists for the people. And the cities and towns across our state are struggling with all kinds of infrastructure needs. Our roads are crumbling. We've got 80-year-old sewer and water pipes in the ground that need to be replaced, need to build new water tanks, just a myriad of things. And we're going to introduce a few bills this year that will help us increase our revenues or even just simplify some things that make it cheaper to do business. One of the things we're going to be looking at is a bill, the Firefighter Protection Fund, and that fund would set aside $6 million for small towns and large towns alike to train code enforcement officials. We think that works good for everybody, the fire commissioners for it, the insurance commissioners for it. Another bill we're going to be looking at is Senate Bill 2003 for towns under 1,500. Those towns are having to advertise even when they don't raise their millage rates. And we're all for transparency, but we don't want to bankrupt a city at the same time. We've got cities that are paying 2% of their annual budget just to run an ad when they're not even raising taxes. So we want to work with the legislature to find a better way to do that. We obviously want to be transparent. Maybe we could just advertise on the internet because everybody goes there anyway. So these are the type of things we're going to be looking at. And we're going to have some of the officers of the Mississippi Municipal League come up and give in more detail what we're talking about. But I want to reiterate that the entire reason we're here is to lobby on behalf of the citizens in the small towns and cities across this great state. Next, I'd like to introduce Mayor Alton Shaw, who is the president of the Mississippi Municipal League. Alton?
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor Johnson, and thank you for serving as legislative chair this year and doing a very good job of it. And as Mayor Johnson mentioned, you know, cities and towns are struggling throughout the state, trying to find different ways to increase revenue without having to increase taxes. Senate Bill 2274 and House Bill 1091 are two that will allow us to do that. There are, when you compile it together, millions upon millions of dollars owed to cities and towns throughout the state, either through old police fines, utility bills, or some other type of debt owed. And this debt set-off bill would allow us, through the Department of Revenue, to collect any of these unpaid fines through any excess that they would have received from their state income tax. And what I think people need to remember as far as when it comes to the state goes, we send about 40 to 50% of the money we collect from fines back to the state to go into the general fund to help with different projects throughout the state. So when we talk a small town like Weston, we're almost $500,000 owed in fines. I've heard some that are above $20 million that are owed in fines. So you start talking about collecting these, we're not only talking about helping the small communities and helping the cities around the state, but also helping our state as a whole in itself. And with that, I would like to introduce Mayor Juan Barnett, our second vice president.
Good morning. On behalf of the Municipal League and all of the cities and villages and towns that are represented here across the state of Mississippi, I stand to talk about our Senate Bill 2029, which is, we all know that 85% of Mississippi cities and towns are under 10,000 citizens. And the small town municipalities grant program is extremely important source for funding the towns like Heidelberg, which is I'm the mayor of, can use to make street, water and sewer improvements and public safety improvements. All of these areas are critical in providing a climate for economic development, activities in our communities. This year, the MML is asking that this program be funded at its original level, which is $10 million. In your packet is and you all should see that there's a brochure that highlights the specific of these important tools for our cities along, with examples of how some small towns have used the funds in the past. And again, I would ask everyone that is represented here today to please respectfully ask your legislators, whether it's Senate or House side, to please support Senate Bill 2029. And I am so excited to see the attendance of our mayors and all the people who chose to come and stand with us today on the steps of the Capitol to let our leadership know that these funding mechanisms that we use for infrastructure and other means to improve our cities and towns are very important. Again, thank you all for your time and your dedication to your towns and to your cities, and thank you all for allowing me an opportunity to talk about how important this is. And at this time, I would like to introduce our first Vice President, Mr. Jimmy Carson. Thank you.
Well, I have a little fun part thing today. I get to recognize some very special people. After the 2014 session, the Mississippi Municipal League implemented a program to recognize specific members of the legislature for their support of municipal-friendly issues. These leaders realized that the local government is the government closest to the citizens, and that as municipal elected officials, we understand the needs of our own people in our own communities. The support of these legislatures were very important to us, and we want to recognize them all today. If you're here as one of these legislatures, would you please come forward as you call your name? The first one I know is here, and one of our good friends and former mayors, Representative Randy Rushing from District 78. Representative Trey Lamar, District 8. Senator Kelvin Butler, District 38. Representative Robert Johnson, District 94. Senator Willie Simmons, District 13. Representative Herb Frierson, District 106. My Representative Jason White, District 48. Senator Terry Burton, District 31. Senator J.P. Wildman, District 5. And Representative Ed Blackman, District 57. And we know most of these people are in session at this time, so we appreciate that. If you would all join me in a round of applause for the 2014 Friends of Municipal Government. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to call on our Director, Sherry Vize, to kind of wrap things up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all of y'all for being here. On the steps behind me, all of these mayors and board members work very hard to improve the life of their citizens every year. They have a lot of challenges, and this year during the legislative session, we definitely hope to be able to help them address some of the challenges that they face every day. But they're committed to making their city and town a better place, and we appreciate that. We thank all of you for coming, and we'll be around for questions afterwards if any of you here would like to ask us specific questions about some of our legislative activity. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day.
It's the Mississippi Municipal League, and our purpose is to represent all the cities and towns throughout the state to give one common voice to our interests and needs.
What are we doing here today?
Just trying to raise awareness for some of the legislative actions that we have going on.
It's always important to find ways to keep the revenues flowing into our small towns and cities so that we can fix the infrastructure. You know, this state was created in 1817, and some of the cities are that old, and we've got sewer pipes in Hemando that are 80 years old and crumbling, and quite frankly, it's hard to find money to fix those with. So anything we can do to get new revenues into the cities or to find sources of ways to collect revenues that we're already owed, that would be very helpful. One of our main bills would be what we call the debt offset bill. So most of us pay our water and sewer bills, and if we get a speeding ticket, we pay it and we do our fair share. But there's a group of people out there who just haven't paid those past due fines and bills. What we would like to do is, if those people are going to get a state income tax refund, we'd like to get the money that's owed the taxpayers first, and we just need some legislation to do that. We're going to be pushing real hard for that this year.
This is very beneficial because a town as small as Weston, with around 2,000 people, we have almost $500,000 in old fines. There are cities around our state that have 20+ million in old fines, and without being able to collect those, then they have to go up on taxes to compensate to be able to pay the roads and do the other things. If you could collect on those old debts, you could be able to keep the taxes down, get a lot of the services and amenities people want, and these are things that people owe. It's just being fiscally responsible. If you've made a mistake and you owe a debt, pay it. We've had situations where we've gone out and we've arrested people on warrant. We've not put the first one in jail because everyone has paid their fine in full right after being arrested. So it's not that they can't pay it, they just choose not to.
The debt set-off is a key item for all of us around the state, but one that I find is very important especially for small towns like the town of Heidelberg, is Senate Bill 2029, which is the Small Municipality Grant Program. And we're asking this year that they raise that limit back to its original value, which is $10 million, because you take a town like Heidelberg and has to get a water tank painted, for example. We're looking at about $350,000 just for that. And that's a huge burden on a small town like Heidelberg. But with the state, if they would fully fund this small municipality grants, then that helps us to get those things needed so that we can provide better services for our towns. It's just not water issues. It's maybe sewer, there may be streets, and all those infrastructure things that are very necessary for small towns. And it does have an economic impact as well as development impact on small towns. So we're just asking if they would really consider funding that back to its original levels.
I think the debt set-off bill is most important to the city of Kosciuszko, based on the fact that we have about $1 million outstanding right now just on traffic fines and police court fines.
Funding is always critical, and that's one of the main reasons that we're up here. We look at areas where we can actually increase our funding without actually affecting the state's funding. That's one of the things with us trying to recoup some of our fines and forfeitures. If we can recoup our fines, then the state coffers go up, but also our coffers go up too. So it doesn't affect the state coffers in a negative way. It affects them in a positive way. And that's what we're up here too. This is a partnership, and that's what we try to make everybody believe. We're not against them, and hopefully they're not against us. We're in a partnership so that we both can increase our revenues without being a detriment to either of those groups or to the citizens that we represent.
All these bills are important. All of us have different needs in our towns and communities. Some of us have streets and sidewalks that need replacing bad, and the only way right now that we have to raise that revenue is put ad valorem tax on homeowners. So there's got to be innovative ways. One-time sales tax is a possibility that we could raise revenues and not have to borrow money or do bond issues and save that revenue on the front end.
Tell us about some of the financial pressures that your city and other cities are under.
Well, obviously the infrastructure is failing. Most of us have 80-year-old sewer pipes and water pipes and streets and sidewalks, and even our parks. Our parks get antiquated. And we all try to provide recreation for our youth and the baseball teams and softballs, and that brings revenue into your town when you have adequate facilities to do that.
One of the biggest things that we're having in our city, we have the debt one, where we have fines from police department that wrote tickets. We have over $1 million that's due to us, and trying to collect those fines from citizens sometimes is real hard. So if this legislation that the MML is supporting, hopefully our leadership will support, will help us collect some of that debt and make it better for our city.
Your reaction to the legislative agenda of MML this year?
Oh, I'm supportive. When I was asked by the MML leadership to serve on the legislative committee, I knew that we have certain agenda items that we are going to go toward. And so being part of the committee, I support everything that we're trying to do to help our small towns and cities.
We had a $2.5 million bond issue that we're about halfway through, and I already have more than half of my streets need repaving again, and I'm still paying for streets that we did 8 years ago.
What do you think should be some solutions for local government?
Well, we're hoping the sales tax diversion could increase a little bit, and that the transportation and highway bills could be funded to a greater extent.
We're just asking that our leadership partner with us, because we have to understand that we are all working for what's good for Mississippi collectively, and we're not against anybody on this. And we're just trying to form that partnership, like he said, to bridge the gap so that everybody can benefit from everything that happens here at our capital.
I think it's very positive. We've gotten a lot of, especially on that side, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from our legislatures. We haven't had any of them that's really come out and said that's not a good idea. Good idea. The Department of Revenue already does this type of collection for other agencies, so it's not like creating a new monster. It's just adding us into the mix.
I'm always optimistic. This, of course, is an election year. I'm a realist at the same time. But that's why we try to come with legislation that doesn't affect the legislature or the state in a negative way, but it affects it in a positive way. And I think I'm positive, real positively optimistic that they're going to hear us and going to respect the wishes that we have and hopefully acquiesce to those.
As you saw, there were hundreds of mayors and council people standing behind me today, and they are all here advocating for the people in Mississippi. They know it's important, and the people send them here to do this work, and I think everybody should look at these people, and the legislators especially should know that we are representing the people back home.
If people have questions like more information, what should they do?
They should go to mmlonline.com.